In this video, I'll show you how to use Paint's advanced tools and how to create a custom palette. I'm going to assume that you are already comfortable creating a custom graph paper and in painting basics. You've probably come to this video because painting and annotating by single tapping each spot to place a color or struggling to place text or an annotation just so got a little tedious. Thankfully, we've got a few advanced features to help us out. We'll start where the Painting Basics video left off. If you watch that video, this partial checkerboard with a few annotations will look familiar. A tap in the upper right opens More. There are 3 advanced features: long press paint settings, snap to grid, and background color. First, long press paint settings. This control sets the pattern that a long press will use to paint the grid, instead of painting with a quick tap to a single spot. The settings combine a choice of pattern, repeat, and direction. This quick painting feature is really helpful for makers whose project plans are in predictable patterns, like traditional quilt design, beading, knitting, cross-stitching, decorative knots, wood turning, many sorts of projects. Let's try out long press. At the top of the pop-up is a map showing how a long press paint will follow the major grid. A red square marks the point of long press, and the green squares show the paint pattern. The current settings are at the default, which will paint in a pattern that includes every square with a no-skip repeat and an always direction from the point of the long press. Let's change the settings to make creating a checkerboard pattern easier. First, let's change the pattern to checkerboard, and I look up to the map and confirm that yes, I'll get the pattern I expected. I'll leave the repeat and the direction as is. Tapping outside the pop-up closes it. The brush color is set to blue, so let's try out the long press. Perfect. Now the orange texture. That was so much easier. Let's go back to More and try out Snap to Grid. Snap to Grid makes it much less frustrating to add lines, as well as align text and lines to a grid. Enable Snap to Grid by tapping the switch. In addition to turning on Snap to Grid, the switch also enables the controls to adjust the snap guides. By default, the snap guides are set to the major grid. I'll tap the red color to confirm. If needed, the guides can be adjusted off the major grid, and the color lets you see their placement. To be clear, the snap guides are just a visual aid. Snap guides are not actually part of the graph paper. They're not displayed in any share, PDF, image, or print of the graph paper. And it's good to know that once the Snap to Grid switch is on, it's working, whether the grid lines are displayed or not. So let's just turn the color off. A tap closes the pop-up, and let's see how Snap to Grid makes precise placement of lines and text less frustrating. First, I'll set the toolbox to 45-degree lines. With Snap to Grid on, the straight lines I draw fit right to the grid. To make it easier for you to see how line placement works more precisely, I'm going to select this straight line and increase its width significantly. Now watch what happens when I tap the line and start to drag it. Guides appear at the corners of the object outline. The green guide shows where to place the line, so the endpoint of the line is at the grid line. I'll pick it up again, and the red guides show me where to place the line, so the edge of the drawn line is nearest the grid line. To move text, there are also guides to help with text placement, but they work slightly differently. I'll tap this text to select it and drag it to a new location. Again, you have red and green guidelines. The red line shows where to place the text, so it is anchored right to the nearest grid line. Grab it again, and the green guide shows where to place the text, so it is centered on a grid line. More's third advanced feature is background color. Here's where the background color can be switched from the white default to a solid color from any of the palettes or the custom palette. There is also a transparency option. A transparent background can be really helpful to anyone who wants to save and import their painted paper into another program. Now this colored background is crazy for this project, so I will open the gray palette and set the background back to white. Finally, let's look at how to create a custom palette. Sometimes a project requires a different color or set of colors that just aren't available with the app. This is when having a custom palette is super helpful. Each graph paper can have one unique custom palette. Choosing the brush displays the color palettes. The custom palette button is to the left, the color wheel, just at the start of the row of colors. Tap the color wheel button to open the custom palette. To start, it is blank. Tap the edit button to open Build Custom Palette. In Build Custom Palette, I can find my own colors and save them. Let's walk through it. The current palette at the top is where the custom palette is saved. Next is the Compare tool. It can be a big help with color selection because it lets you see a side-by-side comparison of the color from the current palette above with a particular shade selected from shades below. Both colors from current palette and shades are displayed against the main value from the color wheel center square on the right. The color in the color wheel is chosen by either dragging the handles on the ring and center square or by entering specific values for a color, either the RGB or HSB, or dragging a color onto the wheel, which I'll show you later. At the bottom is the previous palette. That is the custom palette from the last Open Paint project with Custom Palette. Of course, you can create a custom palette from scratch. However, if you have another paper with a custom palette that would be helpful to reference, open that paper in Paint to set it as the previous palette, then come back and open the paper you want to work on, and then use the Copy button at the very bottom to load that previous palette into the current palette of this project. Okay, let's try it out. A good place to start is the outer ring of the color wheel. Drag the handle of the outer wheel to choose the base color. Notice the RGB values are changing in Compare. Then drag the handle in the color wheel center square and watch as the center square in shade changes to match and is surrounded by various shades of that color. Looking up to Compare, the color from the color wheel is to the right. A tap on the color in shades moves it into Compare on the lower left. To pick a color for the current palette, drag a tile from the shades table directly into the current palette. As I tap colors in the current palette, they are displayed in the upper left of Compare. Notice the 3 numbers beside each of the colors in Compare are the RGB numbers. By making different selections in the current palette, shades, and color wheel, and dragging colors between them, I can build my perfect custom palette. Now colors can also be dragged from the previous palette at the bottom up onto the color wheel or up onto the current palette. One final tip. If I want to get rid of a color in the palette, I can drag the handle in the color wheel center square to the white in the upper left and then drag the white color to overlay the color I don't want. Tap Done to exit, and the custom palette is ready to use. That's it. Now you know how to color and annotate a graph paper.